Hey everyone, welcome to the video for the team assignment about exceptions. So exceptions in Java are really useful for throwing error messages, really is what they are. Error messages in the code that could be handled in specific ways, error messages to the user. And the cool thing about exceptions is we get to make our own and handle them however we want. And that's what this assignment is about. So first things first, you'll need to create a package for your exceptions. So you'll have your controller, your model, your view layer. You'll have an exceptions package. And in that, we'll create a new class. And you will be creating, I believe, one of these for the team assignment. Yeah, one of these for the team assignment, I believe some more for the individual assignment. So just one exception is fine. If you want to do them all together as a team, that's also fine. So I'm going to create a movement exception. And really, exceptions are incredibly simple. I just make sure to extend exception or runtime exception. So the difference between exception and runtime exception is that exception must be explicitly handled and thrown, whereas runtime exception doesn't have to be explicitly thrown or handled. And I'll explain that a little bit later because I think I have some other exceptions that are runtime exceptions. And runtime exceptions are incredibly useful in some cases, but I'll show you exception as well here. So if you extend exception, I'm pretty sure we can just right-click, insert code, constructor, and we'll just want to override all of those. And our exception class is done, right? We're just going to override all of the constructors that come with the exception class, and we're done. So now we get to use our exception. So our movement exception, I'm going to throw that whenever a player tries to move, and they shouldn't be allowed to. So over here in my movement controller, right now I'm returning a Boolean and returning false if they're not allowed to move in that direction. I'm going to go ahead and change that out. I'm going to say if the current location if you can't move, if I'm on the top row and they're trying to move north, I'm actually just going to throw a new movement exception. And I can put an exception message in here. You cannot move north. And I could say you're at the border of the map or whatever. And of course I need to add the import. And here's the difference between runtime exception and just exception. If this exception was a runtime exception, I wouldn't get this error saying unreported exception. Must be caught or declared to be thrown. So I can show you that. If I extend runtime exception, then that error goes away. The exception will still get thrown. If nobody catches it and handles it, it'll end up erroring out of the program, and I'll just get the error message, and my program will terminate. I want this to be just a regular exception. I want it to be make sure that it's handled. So this method now is not going to handle this exception. I want this exception to be handled by the view layer. So this is actually just going to throw a movement exception. So, throws. So your method signature throws an exception, and in your method body you throw the exception. And throwing it literally just says, I don't want it, bubble it up to whoever called me. And then that leaves it to whoever calls this function to handle it themselves. And if I go over to my movement view, you'll see I have an error. Where is my movement view? I think I just have it in main menu. No, sorry, game menu. You'll see in my move north, I now have an exception. The move north call throws a movement exception, and it has to be caught. Or this function can throw it and just say, I don't want to deal with it. Throw it up to the person who called me. But I actually do want to handle it here. So I'm going to do a try. So I don't need to do this check anymore. If I don't need to do a check anymore because the exception is going to be thrown, so I'm going to just handle it in a try catch. And so this is another new bit of code that you'll be learning about, is a try catch block. So a try pretty much says, hey, try executing this code and catch this movement exception. And if I do catch that, then take this action. And there's also a finally in a try-catch block, which always executes. So try moving north. If there's any exceptions, this bails out. Anything after this would not print. So I can do again, the console print line is next week's assignment. So yours will still be system.out.println, but so if I throw an exception on this line will get skipped. I'll jump into the catch block, execute that, and then the finally always executes. And I can even show you that there. I'm just going to copy that. So if I run this now, and I start a new game, and I try and move north immediately, I'll still get the you cannot move there, finally executes. You can see in my game menu view that you move north never printed. If I go back to the code that's running, and I move south first, and then move north, you'll see you move north and finally executes. And the catch block did not execute because no exception was thrown. So you can catch different types of exceptions in the same try catch block. So I can catch a movement exception. I can catch any and all exceptions. So I can catch, like I said, any and all exceptions, which is just the generic exception E. So you always, if you're doing multiple catch blocks, you always need to go more specific to less specific if you want to handle them in that order. If this was before, then this catch would never fire because this catch would catch it first. So yeah, part one of the assignment is create an exception and using it in all of your controllers that are relevant. A movement exception, I have a lose game exception, a win game exception, because I don't have to deal with those specifically every single time. So in my game menu view, or in my battle controller, or anywhere I need to, I can throw that exception and I can catch it and handle it all the way up in my main menu view, or I can handle it all the way up in my, I think I meant to handle it in my main menu view, but now I do not believe I am. It might be in the start program view is where I handle it. No. So yeah, let's do that actually really quickly. In my main menu view, I will wrap this in a try-catch block. And I'll catch a lose game exception. And I'll just print you lose, right? So no matter where in the game that throws, no matter where in anything lower than this, right, in our levels of inception, anywhere from the game menu display, anything that this calls, anything that those methods call, as deep into the program as I am, if I throw a lose game exception, it'll bubble all the way back up here, I'll catch it, and I'll display you lose. So if I go back to my game menu view, I will, on move south, I will throw that lose game exception. Alright? And I have to throw a new one. Because when you're throwing one, you have to create one to throw. So you always have to have that constructor there. So if I run this now, and I move south, I lose, and you'll see it'll prompt me with the main menu again because that view is where I'm at now. Right? All those other layers bubbled up, and I caught the exception, and then the code just picked up where it left off. You could put your win game exception or lose game exception in the same place in the main menu view if you, on a win or lose, want to display the main menu again after. you need to call it anytime you call game menu display. I think on low save game I do the same thing. So I would need to do a try catch around that. Instead of catching generic exception, I would need to catch the lose game exception and the win game exception as well. And part 2 of the assignment is anywhere you're parsing integer input, you need to make sure to put a try catch block around that. Let's see. So let's jump over to my game menu view again. And as an example, let's try on view current location, we'll just grab the player's input. So again, you're going to use a scanner, but later on we'll be translating that into we'll be creating a variable called keyboard, which is a scanner, and we'll be using that. So a lot of your what's my problem here? I guess we'll just add the throws exception for now. So a lot of you, if you're reading input right now that's numbers, probably have something like this. You'll have a scanner off of system.in, and you'll do in.nextInt or next double or whatever. That will work, but what we would want you to do, not me personally, but what this course wants you to do is read a string and then try parsing it. So you'll try. So you'll need a int my num, and you'll say you'll try to assign my num to the I think it's integer dot parse int. Yes, there it is. So you'll want to try parsing. You'll want to use this method on integer double, big I integer, big D double. They're static classes used to help with ints and doubles, as well as they can wrap the int and double in a nice custom Java object, so they're not primitives anymore, but don't worry about that. So yeah, you'll want to use this method parseInt, a static method on the integer class, which is going to take that string, try and interpret it as a number. If it cannot, then it throws a number format exception, I want to say. Yes. And then you'll want to alert the user that they entered a bad number. And then you can prompt them to input it again if you'd like. I'm going to leave this just the way it is. Shoot, I don't want to throw the exception. I guess I'll just catch it here. Okay, so if I run this and view current location, it's sitting there waiting for me to do an input because I added that code, which is that scanner. So if I type the number 5, everything works. I should have probably output the number 5, but if I type the number 5 works. If I view current location and type the word location, or something that looks like location, it's going to say bad numeric input. So that's part 2 of the assignment. Anywhere you're parsing integer values that the user's inputting, you really should be you should really be reading that as a string, trying to parse the int or double out of it, and then outputting exceptions as needed. So that's the team assignment this week. I believe the individual assignment is just, again, the team assignment expanded. I'll double check real quick right here. And I was right. Yeah, the individual assignment, add another exception, runtime or regular exception, and update your control layer to throw that exception where needed. So yeah, that is your team assignment and your individual assignment this week. If there are any questions, please let me know. Post the developer forum. I hope this video was helpful. And sorry it's a little late this week.